1. 936 Shilla surrendered to Goryeo, reunifying the Korean peninsula. In 936, the Korean peninsula faced a historic moment of unification, amid the chaos of the later Three Kingdoms period. Rising to be a powerful force at the time, Goryeo's Wang Jian accepted the surrender by peacefully persuading Shilla, which had resisted until the end. It was evaluated as a symbol of harmony and unification, not just conquest. Shilla fulfilled its role in its long history, and Kimbu, a descendant of King Munmu, continued to cooperate, pledging allegiance to the Goryeo dynasty afterward. This unification marked a turning point in the history of the Korean peninsula, and later Goryeo began its development, dreaming of a peaceful reign as a new dynasty of one nation. The unification of the peninsula in 936 is forever remembered as an important scene in our history. 2. 1297 Monaco becomes independent. 1297 year Monaco marked the beginning of its historical independence. At the time, the region was under the control of the Genoa Republic, but on January 8, 1297, the region laid the foundation for independence, as François Grimaldi disguised himself as a monk and occupied the fortress. This event went down as one of the most iconic moments in Monaco's history, and the Grimaldi family later became the ruling family of Monaco. With its small territory, Monaco maintained its presence by acting as a strategic fortress, and remains an independent small country to this day. The independence of 1297 was an important starting point for Monaco. 3. 1918 U.S. President Woodrow Wilson issues the 14 Articles for Peace after World War I. On January 8, 1918, as World War I was nearing its end, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson made a historic speech, announcing the 14 Articles. This article contained his vision for world peace after the war. Its main points included a fair settlement of the colonial problem, guaranteeing the right to self-determination, reducing arms and strengthening international cooperation through the establishment of the League of Nations. In particular, this declaration served as a message of hope for a devastated Europe at the time, and greatly influenced the foundation of the post-war peace treaty. Although not all of the articles were realized, Wilson's 14 Articles are considered historical moments of setting a new direction for the international order. 4. 1932 Dr. Lee Bong-chang launches a memorial service in Tokyo, in which he throws a bomb at Japanese Emperor Hirohito. On January 8, 1932, independence activist Lee Bong-chang made a historic move by throwing a bomb at Japanese Emperor Hirohito in Tokyo, Japan. Joseon was suffering under Japanese colonial rule at the time, and Lee made the decision to risk his life to resist it. He targeted the emperor's procession by throwing bombs, although it did not directly damage him. However, this incident shocked the Japanese Empire and served as an opportunity to publicize Joseon's will to independence abroad. It is also remembered as an important event that inspired great courage and inspiration in the independence movement forces at home and abroad. Lee's sacrifice and courage remain a shining page in the history of the independence movement to this day. 5. 1959 Charles de Gaulle is sworn in as the first president of the Fifth Republic of France. In 1959, France entered a new era, with the birth of the Fifth Republic and Charles de Gaulle as the first president. The modern political history of France began anew. De Gaulle introduced a presidential system with strong authority to overcome the political instability experienced by the Fourth Republic, which marked a turning point in French politics. In particular, he elevated France's status in the international arena by solving the issue of Algerian independence, and strengthened independent diplomacy and security by developing nuclear weapons. Under de Gaulle's leadership, France laid the foundation for stability and prosperity, and the system of the Fifth Republic became the core of French politics that continues to this day. 6. 1974 President Park Chung-hee of the Republic of Korea declares Emergency Measure No. 1. In 1974, the Republic of Korea was going through a period of great political change. In January of that year, President Park Chung-hee declared Emergency Measure No. 1 to strengthen the Yushim regime. It prohibited acts that claimed an anti-restoration system, or denied the constitution and severely punished those who violated it. Emergency Measure No. 1 severely restricted the freedom of the people, and caused a great stir in society as a whole. Freedom of speech and expression was greatly suppressed, and the democracy democratization movement gradually expanded even in the face of such oppression, behind the logic of national security and economic stability claimed by the Park Chung-hee administration was authoritarian rule that tried to suppress the rights of the people. This measure remains a moment to reflect on the importance of democracy in modern Korean history. 7. 1989 The Japanese era name was changed from Showa to Heisei. In 1989, Japan faced a significant historical turning point. On January 7 of that year, with the death of Emperor Showa, the Japanese era name was changed from Showa to Heisei. The Showa period was a turbulent period that went through both the horrors of war and the economic revival, leaving behind it and ushering in a new era. The Heisei era, in particular, symbolized the era of stability and harmony for the Japanese people. In particular, the Heisei era marked a milestone in Japan's modern history, aiming for a peaceful era without war. The change was not just a change in numbers, but an important moment that was remembered as a new starting point for the Japanese. 8. 1992 Regular demand protests to resolve the issue of Japanese military sexual slavery began. In January 1992, Regular Wednesday, protests to call for the resolution of the Japanese military sexual slavery began in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul, Korea, held every Wednesday to publicize the pain and truth of the Japanese military sexual slavery victims and to demand an official apology and legal compensation from the Japanese government. The protests informed the world of the seriousness of the women's human rights issue during the war. It started out with a small number of people, but over time, it has become a symbol of international solidarity with the support of many at home and abroad. The ongoing Wednesday protests carry important meanings for remembering history and preventing repetition, along with the voices of the victims who shout for justice despite the pain. 9. 2020 Ukrainian International Airlines Flight 752 was shot down in Tehran, Iran, killing all on board. In the early morning of January 8, 2020, Ukrainian International Airlines Flight 752 from Tehran, Iran, was shot down by a missile shortly after takeoff. It was a shocking accident, in which all 176 people on board lost their lives. The Iranian military initially denied the accident, but later admitted to making the wrong attack due to a malfunctioning its air defense system. At the time, amid heightened tensions between Iran and the United States, the disaster caused sadness and anger around the world. Voices of remembrance for the victims followed, and the international community called for the precise determination of the cause and punishment of those responsible. The accident is remembered as a reminder of what kind of tragedy a military conflict could cause for civilians. 10. 2021 Iran fires missiles at U.S. military bases in Iraq. In 2021, there was an incident that made the world nervous. Iran fired missiles at a U.S. military base in Iraq. It was in retaliation for the death of then Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander Qasem Soleimani in a U.S. airstrike. The attack marked the peak of tensions between the two countries, further heightening unrest in the Middle East. After the missile launch, Iran called it justifiable revenge, and the U.S. military avoided immediate action, but increased alertness to the next step. Fortunately, there were no direct deaths from the missile strike, but many of the U.S. military personnel suffered concussion and other injuries. The incident remains a significant moment that brought the situation in the Middle East to attention by the international community and is still under discussion today.